was a teacher and a coach. You know, a job that has benefits and retirement. And he gave it all up with six young kids.
He was the soul of the crew, the man who turned dirt into treasure. Then, without warning, he was gone. Jesse Goins didn't just work on Gold Rush, Dave Turin's lost mine. He embodied its spirit. Viewers adored his joy, grit, and heart. But behind the camera, a tragedy unfolded that left castmates reeling and fans devastated. Why did Jesse collapse on set that night? Was it preventable or a disaster waiting to happen? And why do so many still believe they don't know the full story? A sudden loss on set. This wasn't supposed to happen, not like this, not to Jesse. The morning of August 18, 2020 started like any other day on the rugged terrain of Box Creek Mine in Colorado. Cameras rolled, machinery hummed, and the rhythm of hard work echoed through the site. Jesse Goins, the ever-dedicated gold room operator, was doing what he had done for months, carefully refining the day's gold, smiling quietly as he worked, always focused. But by nightfall, the set was no longer a place of industry. It had become the scene of a tragedy that would change the Gold Rush family forever. Jesse was found unconscious near the gold room, the very place he had made his own with tireless dedication and an almost sacred reverence for the process. A crew member discovered him on the ground, unresponsive. Panic spread fast. On-site medics were called immediately, and emergency responders were alerted. CPR was administered, and every effort was made to revive him. But Jesse never woke up. He was pronounced dead at the hospital later that evening. The suspected cause? A heart attack. It's a term that sadly has become common when someone passes unexpectedly. But in Jesse's case, there was no autopsy publicly released. No family statement confirming the exact details. No network-issued medical clarification. Just silence. For fans, friends, and even fellow miners, the lack of answers only deepened the heartbreak. A man so full of life, so committed to his craft, was suddenly gone, and no one could fully explain why. It didn't help that the tragedy occurred in the middle of filming. The cameras were there. The crew was there. Jesse was there, alive and well, until he wasn't. The proximity of his death to the production created questions. Was it the pressure of filming? Was it exhaustion? Was there any warning? If so, had it been missed? All anyone knew was that 1 minute Jesse was doing the job he loved. The next, he was gone. Dave Turin, the leader of the mining operation and a longtime friend of Jesse, later revealed that he had been the first to reach him. The man who trusted Jesse with the most crucial role on the team, the gold room, was also the one who held him in his final moments. Dave tried to revive him. He worked hard, he said, to bring Jesse back into this world. But God had another plan, he wrote, heartbroken. Love you, Jesse. See you soon. The rest of the team was devastated. Many had spent countless hours beside Jesse, sharing meals, laughter, and the kind of camaraderie that only forms under high-pressure, high-stakes conditions like mining. Jesse wasn't just a co-worker, he was family. The mood on set shifted instantly. Production halted. Silence settled in. Grief took over. What followed was a wave of mourning that stretched far beyond the mine. Fans around the world, many of whom had come to love Jesse's gentle demeanor and infectious enthusiasm, were stunned. He had only appeared in 15 episodes of Gold Rush, Dave Turin's lost mine, but in that short time, he had left an indelible mark. Viewers saw him not just as a miner, but as the quiet backbone of the operation. A man of faith, precision, and unshakable kindness. Social media flooded with tributes. Co-stars shared emotional messages. Jesse's brother Larry posted a gut-wrenching farewell, writing, "Heaven will never be the same. My brother Jesse went home to be with his Father, Lord, and Savior." Those words echoed across the internet, reaching fans who had never met Jesse but felt like they knew him. And in a way, they did. His smile, his work ethic, his joy, it was all there, episode after episode. But this tragedy wasn't just about a man dying. It was about what he meant to those around him. The gold room heartbeat. He didn't just process gold, he gave it meaning. To understand the loss of Jesse Goins, you have to understand what he meant to Gold Rush. Dave Turin's lost mine. On paper, he was the gold room operator, responsible for cleaning, separating, and weighing every speck of gold that the team worked tirelessly to extract. But in reality, Jesse was far more than a technician with a scale. He was the soul of the operation. In a profession that often glorifies the adrenaline of heavy machinery and the drama of breakdowns, Jesse's world was one of quiet precision and reverence for the craft. Every nugget of gold passed through his hands. Every fine flake that made its way through sluice boxes, trommels, and wash plants was ultimately entrusted to Jesse. And he didn't just handle the gold, he honored it. His methods were slow, careful, and deeply personal. He didn't rush, he didn't cut corners. Every batch of gold was treated like a sacred reward for the team's blood, sweat, and tears. What made Jesse stand out even more was the joy he found in the work. Most operators celebrate a big haul with fist pumps and shouting. Jesse? He lit up like a child on Christmas morning. When the gold poured out, his eyes sparkled. He'd grin, sometimes quietly whispering a prayer of gratitude. It wasn't just about money. It was about purpose, about achievement, about proving once again that their hard work had meant something. That attitude, gentle, humble, and grateful, didn't just stay inside the gold room. Off camera, Jesse was a calming force, a peacekeeper, and a quiet example of what integrity looks like under pressure. While others might complain or clash during the long, grueling days on set, Jesse kept his head down and his spirit up. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't pick sides, he didn't need attention. What he gave was kindness. One crew member recalled that Jesse would give up his meal for someone else without hesitation. If a fellow miner had a rough day, Jesse was often the first to put a hand on their shoulder or offer a few words of encouragement. He was the guy you could count on to listen. The guy who remembered your birthday. The guy who'd offer to pray with you if things got too heavy. That quiet strength made him beloved not just by the team, but by viewers. In just 15 episodes, Jesse left a lasting impact that most reality stars never achieve. Fans often said he reminded them of a favorite uncle or a wise neighbor, someone trustworthy, dependable, and good. Truly good. His presence brought balance to a show built on risk and raw ambition. Where others pushed machines to their limits, Jesse reminded everyone why they were really there, not just to chase gold, but to honor the work it takes to earn it. His faith, too, played a major role in how he approached everything. Jesse didn't boast about his beliefs, but those close to him knew he was a deeply spiritual man. He saw every day on the mine as a blessing, every gold haul as a gift, every member of the team as a brother or sister. His heart wasn't just in the work, it was in the people. After his passing, Dave Turin spoke candidly about how Jesse brought peace to the crew. He was our gold room operator, Dave said, but he was also our heartbeat. He reminded us to slow down, to be thankful, and to take pride in the little things. That sentiment echoed through the cast and crew like a wave. Jesse hadn't just refined gold, he had refined people. But who was the man behind the workbench? And why did everyone on set feel like they'd lost a brother? Brotherhood and burden, Dave Turin's pain. He found Jesse first. He fought to bring him back, but he couldn't. For Dave Turin, August 18, 2020 is more than a date. It's a wound that never fully healed. Jesse Goins wasn't just a crew member. He wasn't just a face on camera or a man assigned to a task. Jesse was family. And on that quiet Colorado evening, that family was shattered. The two had history. Long before Gold Rush, Dave Turin's Lost Mine became a hit series. Dave and Jesse had crossed paths through mining connections in Montana. Jesse had taken Dave to Grasshopper Creek back in 2018, an introduction that helped shape the future of the show's direction. When Dave launched his own spin-off of Gold Rush, he didn't just hire Jesse to fill a spot. He trusted him to run the most critical part of the operation, the gold room. That's not a job you give lightly. You give it to someone you'd trust with your future. That trust wasn't misplaced. Jesse handled the gold with the same care and integrity that he handled people. He didn't let things slip through the cracks. Not the tiniest flake of gold, not the smallest opportunity to lift someone's spirit. So when the unimaginable happened and Jesse collapsed near the very room he had made his own, Dave's world turned upside down. It was Dave who found him. Dave who sprinted across uneven ground, past crew and cameras, toward the man lying still on the ground. And it was Dave who tried to save him, administering CPR, calling for help, refusing to give up until paramedics arrived. Later, Dave would say, "I worked hard to bring him back to our world, but God had another plan." That single moment, his attempt to bridge life and death with his own hands, would become one of the heaviest burdens Dave ever carried. The trauma didn't stop with that night. In the days that followed, the crew shut down production, not out of schedule conflict or logistical issues, but out of respect, out of grief. For Dave, everything he had built, the show, the mine, the team, felt suddenly hollow. He wasn't just mourning a cast member, he was grieving a brother, someone whose laughter had filled long days, whose faith had centered tense moments, and whose presence had been as constant as the hum of the equipment. In interviews, Dave spoke with raw honesty about the aftermath. He said that not a day went by without thinking of Jesse, that trying to move forward after such a loss felt almost impossible, and viewers saw the toll. On screen, Dave's demeanor shifted. The normally driven, hopeful leader seemed quieter, more contemplative. Off-screen, fans began to wonder how the grind of constant filming, the demands of leading a crew, and the emotional toll of tragedy might have changed him permanently. Some even asked if it had all become too much. Was the pressure of delivering television moments while mining in remote, hazardous environments catching up with them all? Could the endless push for production have masked warning signs about Jesse's health? While there's no evidence of negligence, the questions lingered. Because when someone so vibrant dies so suddenly, silence never feels like enough. Dave never publicly blamed anyone, not the production, not the lifestyle, not even himself. But you could hear it in his voice, the weight of what-ifs, the constant replaying of that night, the heartbreak of having been there, of having tried, and of having lost. And it wasn't just Dave. The entire team bore the loss like a scar. Jesse had been their rock, their steady hand, the one who never lost faith. Without him, the mine felt different, quieter, heavier, more vulnerable. As one crew member put it, "We kept going, but something about the heart of the team was just missing." And that led many to ask, was it stress, exhaustion, or something that could have been prevented? Rumors, silence, and speculation, a sudden death, no autopsy, no closure. Theories took root. In the hours after Jesse Goins passed away, a wave of shock swept through fans, castmates, and the larger Gold Rush community. People didn't just mourn, they searched. They scoured headlines, watched every news segment, reread Discovery Channel's statement, and waited for updates. But none came. Aside from the network's brief confirmation and a few heartfelt tributes, there were no medical details, no autopsy reports, no official explanation. Just an overwhelming silence that felt louder than any announcement could. That silence did something predictable and dangerous. It left a gap, and where there's a gap, speculation rushes in. Online forums lit up with questions. Was it really a heart attack? Did Jesse have a pre-existing health condition that no one knew about? Or was there something about that specific day, something about the conditions at Box Creek Mine, that pushed his body too far? Fans pointed out that he had been working hard, that the altitude in parts of Colorado is known to affect heart function, especially in older individuals. Others wondered about the stress of filming. Could the constant presence of cameras, production deadlines, and the physical demands of gold mining have played a role? Then came a more serious layer of concern: safety. Some began questioning whether the set had adequate emergency protocols. Did Jesse receive help fast enough? Were medical supplies and trained personnel immediately available? as they should be in such remote and high-risk environments. While no one pointed fingers directly, there was a growing discomfort with how little had been shared and how quickly the topic seemed to vanish from public discussion. It didn't help that Discovery Channel's public statement was brief and emotionally distant. "We are heartbroken to hear this news. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family." A sentence meant to show sympathy ended up feeling hollow to many. There was no detail, no follow-up, and no deeper acknowledgement of what Jesse had meant, not just to the show, but to the people who watched him with admiration and love. Viewers wanted more than condolences. They wanted clarity, and they got none. This lack of closure became its own kind of tragedy. Rumors began to snowball, fed by the vacuum of information. Some claimed that Jesse had been complaining about chest pain earlier in the day. Others alleged that long hours and extreme heat had worn him down. A few even speculated that the stress of being on television had contributed to chronic anxiety. Most of these theories were impossible to verify, but they took hold because there was nothing to replace them with. Even among Jesse's castmates, few spoke publicly in detail. Dave Turin and Nathan Clark posted touching tributes, but didn't address the medical mystery. Whether out of respect for the family's privacy or due to legal limitations, they stayed quiet. And as the weeks turned into months, that silence became permanent. The official cause of Jesse Goins' death has never been released, not to the press, not to the fans, and not to the many people who still ask what really happened that day. In the middle of all this hullabaloo, one thing stood out incredibly clearly. Jesse Goins was very much loved. In very many other words, loved not only by family and co-workers, but a large community of strangers who somehow came to love him within what could only be described as a blink of an eye. He had appeared for only 15 episodes, but those 15 episodes had made him a true icon. So warm, he was impossible to forget. When conflict and spectacle were the currency of reality television, Jesse somehow still stood apart. Calm, gentle, and quietly brilliant, he never sought to upstage. He did so audacious, from the podium of sheer being. This is where his death found so much resonance within people. They were not merely mourning a character on the screen. They were mourning the real guy who injected kindness, faith, and profundity into every single frame he occupied. But even in the absence of answers, one truth stood tall. Jesse didn't die forgotten. He died loved. Tributes and tears across the globe. The mining world wept, and so did millions of fans. When news broke of Jesse Goins' death, shock quickly gave way to sorrow. Not just among the cast and crew who had worked beside him, but across continents and time zones. The internet lit up with heartbreak. Tributes poured in by the thousands. For someone who only appeared in a handful of episodes, Jesse left an impact that extended far beyond the reach of reality television. His loss wasn't just acknowledged, it was felt deeply and universally. The first wave of mourning came from those closest to him. Jesse's brother, Larry Goins, took to social media and wrote what many still consider the most moving words shared in the days after Jesse's death. "Heaven will never be the same. My brother Jesse went home to be with his Father, Lord and Savior. He will be missed dearly. Love you, brother." It wasn't just a tribute. It was a farewell full of faith, pain, and finality. And it echoed far beyond the walls of their home. Nathan Clark, one of Jesse's crewmates and friends, followed with his own heartfelt post. In it, he called Jesse the kindest soul he had ever met. He would give up his meal for the man next to him who was not as hungry, Nathan shared. He was friend and brother to me. I called him my little leprechaun because he always got that gold so clean. The words carried weight because they came from someone who had lived and worked shoulder to shoulder with Jesse. Someone who had seen his quiet sacrifices, his humor, and his heart firsthand. Then came Discovery Channel's tribute, a full episode dedicated to Jesse. Rather than gloss over the tragedy or move on quickly, the network chose to pause and reflect. Viewers were shown Jesse's best moments, his dedication in the Gold Room, his warm personality, and the laughter he brought to even the most stressful workdays. It wasn't about drama. It was about honoring a man who had become the emotional backbone of the crew. For many fans, that episode was more than a gesture. It was closure. And yet, even with the episode aired, the tributes didn't stop. Fans from all around the world flooded the internet with memories, tears, and tributes. Comment sections on YouTube, Facebook, and Reddit became digital memorials. People shared screenshots of Jesse smiling at his workbench. Others uploaded drawings and digital artwork to remember him. Some even wrote poems and letters addressed to him directly, expressing how much he had inspired them in such a short span of time. What stood out most was how personal these messages were. Jesse wasn't just mourned as a cast member, he was mourned as if he were family. Many fans never met him, never spoke a word to him, and yet they grieved as if they had. Why? Because Jesse represented something rare in the world of reality TV. Genuine goodness. There was no ego, no posturing, no need for attention. He was real. And in a world full of noise, his quiet presence had been a comfort to so many. Even people outside the Gold Rush fandom joined the chorus of sorrow. Viewers who didn't regularly watch the show still came across the tributes to Jesse and were moved by the sheer outpouring of love. "I didn't know who Jesse was," one commenter wrote, "but these messages show me he must have been one really special guy." That kind of legacy doesn't come from being famous. It comes from being good, genuinely, undeniably good. Weeks and months went on, but memories of Jesse burned brightly on. Some fans started posting Jesse moments from old episodes, times when his calm diffused explosions, when his excitement over gold reminded viewers what the show was really about, or when his faith and kindness spoke quietly to elevate those around him. Others even began petitions asking Discovery to either add more snapshots to the collection or establish an annual tribute for Jesse. The wake of the message was quite simple. Jesse Goins was gone, but not forgotten. But to truly understand Jesse's legacy, we have to go back to where it all started. A miner's faith and humble beginnings. Before gold, before TV, Jesse Goins was already rich in purpose. Long before the cameras arrived, before his name was known to viewers across the world, Jesse Goins was already living a life of quiet fulfillment. His story didn't begin on a mining site. It began in Montana, where his love for nature, hard work, and community took root. He was a seasoned prospector, someone who had spent years walking rugged terrain, reading the land, and patiently sifting for gold in the rivers and creeks that thread through the Montana backcountry. He wasn't chasing fortune, he was following something deeper: purpose. It was in 2018 that Jesse first crossed paths with Dave Turin in a way that would change both their lives. Jesse brought Dave to Grasshopper Creek, a location steeped in mining history and rich in potential. There was no production team, no showrunner, no crew, just two men walking the ground and talking gold. But what stood out to Dave wasn't just Jesse's mining knowledge. It was his integrity, his peaceful demeanor, his calm confidence, the kind of traits that don't need to announce themselves. They're just there, steady and real. So when Dave launched Gold Rush, Dave Turin's Lost Mine, he didn't hesitate. He brought Jesse onto the team not just for his technical skills, but because of who he was: reliable, humble, devoted, and in the midst of a mining crew known for long hours, unpredictable weather, and non-stop mechanical issues, Jesse became a stabilizing force, someone who carried not only his own responsibilities, but the emotional balance of the group. At the heart of Jesse's strength was his faith. He was a deeply spiritual man, and those who worked beside him felt it. Not because he preached or made it a point to talk about religion, but because of how he lived. Jesse treated every day on the mine as a blessing. He worked as if his effort was a form of worship, calm, steady, meticulous, grateful. He offered prayers when needed, sometimes for the crew, sometimes just in silent moments of his own. His faith wasn't for show. It was his foundation. His devotion extended to his family, especially his wife, whom he cherished above all else. In interviews and casual conversations, Jesse often spoke about her with admiration and warmth. She wasn't just his partner in life, She was part of what grounded him. Fame, gold, television, all of that meant little compared to the simple joys of love, faith, and purpose. That perspective shaped how Jesse moved through the world. He didn't chase the spotlight. He didn't care for drama. He cared about doing the right thing, being a good man, and treating others with dignity. He was pretty famous for his wit, too. Jesse had this extraordinary ability to throw a very dry and perfectly timed comment without undercutting the seriousness of the business, which would lighten the mood. Crew members cherished stories about long, painful days when Jesse belted something that had the whole group giggling and instantly changed the vibe. He had this gift of knowing when to speak, when not to speak, and how to get people together. He didn't seek fame. He sought peace. But it was that peace that made him unforgettable. The legacy he left behind. Gone too soon, but never truly gone. 15 episodes, that's all it took. Just over a dozen appearances on Gold Rush. Dave Turin's lost mine. And Jesse Goins left a mark that many personalities can't manage in 100. He didn't chase fame. He didn't angle for the spotlight. And yet, when fans talk about the soul of the show, one name rises again and again. Jesse. Viewers remember his joy. The quiet, contented smile when gold poured into the pans. The way his face lit up as if every haul was the first. The way he celebrated with humility instead of ego. Jesse didn't just operate the gold room, he became its spirit. He gave it rhythm, reverence, and a sense of magic. When gold was struck, Jesse didn't cheer like a man counting money. He smiled like someone witnessing a small miracle. And that purity, untouched by television polish, became the beating heart of the show. After his sudden death, the cast and crew were left with more than grief. They were left with an absence that couldn't be filled. The gold room was quieter now. Hauls continued, gold was processed, and numbers were logged. But without Jesse's voice, his energy, his presence, something fundamental had shifted. What used to be a moment of celebration became a quiet echo of what once was. Every successful weigh-in reminded the crew of who was missing. Every pan of gold felt just a little heavier with sorrow. Dave Turin, still visibly shaken in interviews long after the event, said it best. Jesse was more than a teammate. He was a brother, a man of honor, a man of peace. And so in the seasons that followed, every ounce mined was dedicated to Jesse's memory. It wasn't a formal ceremony, it didn't need to be. The dedication lived in the way the crew carried themselves, in the care taken in the gold room, in the moments when someone would glance toward Jesse's old station and pause. For fans, his legacy lives on in more personal ways. Some continue to rewatch episodes, not for the drama or the gold, but to see Jesse smile, to hear him laugh, to feel again that sense of calm he brought to the screen. One fan wrote online, "When Jesse was on, I didn't care how much gold they found. I just wanted to watch him work. He made it feel real." Another added, "He reminded me of my father, gentle, hard-working, and full of quiet wisdom. Watching him brought me peace." There's also something deeply symbolic about Jesse's legacy continuing through gold, the very element he handled with such respect. Every haul since his passing, every precious ounce, carries a piece of that legacy. Not in a mystical sense, but in the real lived experiences of those who knew him. His lessons, his calm, his approach, they shaped the team. And in that way, Jesse never left. He remains in the DNA of the crew's work ethic, in the respect they show the land, and in the gratitude they feel for each day on the mine. Jesse Goins lived for adventure, for purpose, and for the people around him. His death shook the Gold Rush community, but his legacy only grows stronger with time. If Jesse's story moved you, share your memories in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more stories of the unsung heroes behind your favorite shows. And always remember, some legacies are measured not in gold, but in the hearts they touch. Click the next video to keep the story going.